Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, June 22nd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 72 days. The game against Michigan in 156 days. Ohio State has its quarterback, at least one of its quarterbacks, question mark in my tone of voice, for the class of 2025. We just got to see him throw a whole bunch at Ohio State on Wednesday, and he was mighty impressive, and his name is Tavien St. Clair. He is the quarterback of Bellefontaine. And now, starting in 2025, he is going to be the quarterback of Ohio State. He announced his commitment a little later on in the day on Wednesday after going head-to-head with one of Ohio State's other quarterback offers for the class of 2025, Ryan Montgomery. His team and Montgomery's team met in the finals of the 7-on-7 tournament in a game that went right down to the wire. And Tony Gerdeman was there to watch it all. Tony he joins me today from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, I think let's start with Tavien St. Clair. You got to watch a lot of him just sort of throughout the course of the day. What did you see out of him? What is Ohio State getting in Tavien St. Clair for its class of 2025?
I think the number one thing they're getting is a guy that continues to get better, and it continues to put the work in to get better. And every time we've seen him from last year, he's gotten so much better. But, a big arm, very accurate, very calm. Not that there's a pass rush in 7-on-7, but a guy who is in complete control, and now being the second commit of the 2025 class can really get them going. A guy that, you and I have talked about, go get an Ohio quarterback because they might stick around a little bit longer than the out-of-state guys. And so that's what they did, and he happens to be one of the fastest rising quarterbacks in the country, and right now you'll see him, I think, as a 3-star on Rivals and a 3-star on threes, like a 4-star composite, and ESPN hasn't ranked him yet. I think all of that will be changing in short order once whenever the recruiting networks start to do their next evaluation meetings and releases.
Yeah, I will raise my hand and say that I saw Tavien St. Clair at the 7-on-7 camp at Ohio State 1 year ago, probably to the week, and looked at him and looked at Ryan Montgomery and went, well, I guess you can sort of see, like, it's sort of, there's a frame, the frame's there, but not, hadn't really filled out and wasn't super impressive. And just, it looked last year like Ryan Montgomery was clearly ahead of Tavien St. Clair. And then you sort of started to hear stuff through the fall that St. Clair had kind of was getting bigger, bulking up a little bit. Arm was a little stronger, was more accurate passer. And then camp this month, we've seen a bunch of Tavien St. Clair this month, and it looks like a different player. I think he's probably put on about 30 pounds, maybe added an inch or two of height as well, and a much more accurate passer. He last year was just, a little erratic last year. This year, he was on the money. It was impressive. And it is 7-on-7. There's no pass rush. And, I think his supporting cast this year might be a little better than it was a year ago in terms of, receivers. But man, oh man, he looked the part of an Ohio State quarterback on Wednesday. And then now he is going to be an Ohio State quarterback. So yeah, I think he is right now the 4-star, 246th overall in the 247 rankings. I would expect that to go up quite a bit as some, especially and in the composite, as some of those other sources start to redo their rankings at some point, because he looks like a very, very different player than he did a year ago. And then the question is, okay, you've got Ryan Montgomery. Ryan Montgomery, the younger brother of Ohio State offensive lineman Luke Montgomery, out of Findlay. He looked fantastic on Wednesday, too. I mean, both of those guys look like every bit the part of potentially a future Ohio State quarterback. And then the question, Tony, becomes, okay, will Ohio State take 2 quarterbacks in the class of 2025? And will those 2 guys, both of whom are very much high-level Power 5 quarterback prospects, will they want to be one of 2 quarterbacks in a class? I'm sure Ohio State would not mind it, but this doesn't feel like it's super likely that they're going to end up with both of those in-state highly touted quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, for Ryan Montgomery, and I do think Ohio State, if they can, they'll take 2, and if it's those 2, they'd be thrilled with it. But you're talking about Ryan Montgomery, who's a guy, his trajectory is going the same direction that Tavien St. Clair's is, and Montgomery has offers from places like Georgia, and so he doesn't have to be the second quarterback in any class. Not that being the second quarterback in a class is something to, it's not like an insult or anything, because previous second quarterbacks in classes, C.J. Stroud was a second quarterback in a class. Troy Smith back in 2002, the second quarterback in a class. So there are, if you are the second quarterback in a class, it doesn't mean you are the last quarterback that will ever see the field. But, again, Ryan Montgomery does not have to do that. He can choose to go somewhere else and be a lone quarterback in a class, which is what most quarterbacks do, the vast majority of quarterbacks. So to expect anything different would be kind of a surprise. I do think Ohio State will continue to look, but not at the possibility of losing Tavien St. Clair. They know, and he knows that he is their guy. And I think that message has been relayed. And I'll tell you what, Brian Montgomery on Wednesday, that was the best I've ever seen him. And he's looked good before. And, last week we saw them both at the same morning session at camp. I thought Tavien St. Clair that day showed everybody why he was worthy of this. And Ryan Montgomery showed everybody today. And he was on point for pretty much, 90% of his throws, which, again, as we've said, it's 7-on-7. But he was outstanding, and I expect him to do very well at Findlay this year again and to continue to pile up offers.
I have to agree with your assessment there that was the best you had seen Ryan Montgomery look, and that was certainly the best I had seen Ryan Montgomery look. I mean, that was a really, really impressive performance from both of those guys, Montgomery and St. Clair, on Wednesday at Ohio State. And I'm going to throw in Ethan Grunkemeyer as well from Olentangy. He is committed to Penn State. He looked really good during the day. It was a very good object lesson, I think, in the exactly how good high-level Power 5 quarterbacks really are. Because I think, people look at it and it's like, oh, he's going to Illinois, he stinks. Like, no. If you are a Power 5 quarterback and you are playing, if you are just around other good high school quarterbacks, you really get an understanding for exactly how different these guys are and how precise they are. Because you would watch other games and guys are missing guys in the end zone, and people who are open by 3 yards and guys are overthrowing it. When you were watching Montgomery, you're watching St. Clair, you're watching Grunkemeyer, those are guys who small windows and they're putting the ball in there. And there was I was sitting next to the coach from one of the teams that had to play St. Clair during the pool play round, and their team got lit up, and afterwards, this coach is explaining to the kids, listen, do you know where this kid is going to be going to, that is a quarterback who Ohio State wants to play quarterback for them. That you're not going to be facing a lot of those guys during the course of the season. Like, it's okay that you're going to get lit up by a guy who who throws the ball like that sometimes. And St. Clair looked like that. Montgomery looked like that. Grunkemeyer looked like that. Very, very, very impressive day for all three of those guys. So, now, Tony, the question is, okay, so you've got St. Clair. Montgomery is going to go somewhere big. We'll see if it's Ohio State or not, and maybe not. The other name that has sort of been in that quarterback derby for Ohio State is 5-star Bryce Underwood. He's out of Belleville, Michigan. He is sort of, the white whale for everyone chasing the quarterbacks in the class of 2025. What's your sense for Tavien St. Clair? Does this sort of end the pursuit of Bryce Underwood for Ohio State in that 2025 class?
Yeah, unless there is just something about Ohio State that Bryce Underwood is just, I have to be a Buckeye, that sort of thing. If that is his determination and he'll move heaven and earth type of thing. But yeah, I think he's another guy, 5-star. Saw him in Obetz at the Under Armour Next camp a couple of months ago, and he was amazing. He looked 6'3", 6'4", looks like a college high level quarterback. It's one of those things we've talked about in the past. The first time we saw Justin Fields compared to everybody else, the throws were very different. His throws were, just laser beams, flat and straight, but definitely also had touch and was just picking guys apart in the one-on-ones back then. But yeah, this is a guy that can go anywhere. And so unless he is bound and determined that, he needs to be a Buckeye, I would expect him to move on. And that's part of this whole decision making and decision allowing process for the Buckeyes, because by saying, Tavien, we will accept your commitment. If you are ready to commit, we will accept that. You're not just accepting one quarterback. You're saying goodbye to at least one, probably two, and then there's fallout from that. What I do think is this is the kind of situation that Ryan Day dreams of. You have two in-state quarterbacks that you have offered. That's the first time he's ever had that opportunity in his Ohio State career. I think the last time Ohio State had two in-state quarterbacks that they may have offered was 2013 with Malik Zaire and Mitch Trubisky, and I think both of those offers came way too late. And then, 2011, they offered both Cardale Jones and Braxton Miller. 2002, Justin Zwick and Troy Smith. But, this is a rare occurrence, and so, yeah, it comes with fallout. It comes with, maybe saying no to, and not that Ohio State has said no to the Montgomerys and Ryan Montgomery, but it's kind of saying, we've got our guy. Now, if you also want to be our guy, we will gladly take you. But it's difficult conversations, and you wonder if there's any hurt feelings or anything like that, and that's part of the whole in-state process.
Yeah, but the quarterback position is one where you generally have a guy. If Ohio State could take two quarterbacks in this class, I'm sure they would be happy to take both Montgomery and St. Clair, or Underwood and St. Clair. But the quarterback position is by nature one where generally one guy plays, and so generally one guy is in a class. And Ohio State did take two in a class a couple of years ago with Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud, but only one of them really stuck around for more than a year or so. So that is sort of the nature of the position. And the other part of the nature of the position is that's sort of a leadership role. And that's a leadership role in the huddle. That's a leadership role in the locker room. And it's also a leadership role on the recruiting trail. So how important is it for Ohio State to have their guy now? You've got Tavien St. Clair. You're still 18 months out from early signing day for the class of 2025. How big is that to have your quarterback sort of, locked in now 18 months in advance, to let him kind of go out and be, one of the Pied Piper on the recruiting trail, as the old saying goes?
Yeah, it's huge. And, he is the second commit of the class, joining Jonte Gilbert, the 5-star corner. But, you're probably going to be hard pressed to find anybody that thinks Gilbert will stay in the class. I think a lot of people just eventually expect him to flip, but having that quarterback, look what Kyle McCord did in 2021 as one of those Pied Pipers that, like you said. And this is a guy that, seems to be likable and will certainly be a driving force in the recruitment. And I think that's one of the reasons why he decided to commit now. This is the place he wanted to be. And so when you find that place, you also want to find others. And, there's going to be no shortage of receivers to recruit and the running backs that Ohio State is looking at right now and that are looking at them. So he's going to have players around him, skill positions, but you might want to work hard on that offensive line, might want to work hard on the defense as well. There's still plenty to do. And this entire, as we said, the class is one or two people deep right now. And, but now you can get really started. And, when you start to kind of wrap up the previous class, you can really get headlong and going in the next class, the following class, and that's where Ohio State is headed. Even though 24 is going to be a big class as well, but now that you've got your quarterback, you can kind of hit the go button and say, hey, let's get things going. And there are plenty of players that would like to commit to Ohio State right now, but Ohio State still has to be a little bit choosy.
And, the class of 2024 on the offensive side of the ball, there are a couple spots they still need to fill, but by and large, the offensive side of that ball is more or less full now. So they are probably starting to change their focus a little bit towards 2025, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Still some work to do on defense, but, one nice thing, in addition to being in early, Tavien St. Clair is also relatively close. He's from Bellefontaine, which is, you go past, out past Dublin, and then out past where Scott's is. Marysville, thank you. And Bellefontaine's up, lovely area, some ski areas up there. but not very far out 33 northwest of Columbus. So as often as we saw Will Smith at Ohio State games last fall, the defensive end from Dublin, you're probably going to see a whole lot of Tavien St. Clair. We saw a bunch of them at camps over the summer. He's probably going to be a very frequent visitor. And then anytime you bring in guys for official visits, well, he can just sort of pop down and, hey, just happened to be in town and wanted to say hi and say, hey, I'm going to be playing football here, and we sure would like it if you played football here too. That you start building those relationships with the coaches, with your potential future teammates. That's the kind of thing that can lead to a very big recruiting class. It has happened before, and Ohio State is certainly hoping it will happen again in 2025. With Tavien St. Clair as one of the very, very big early cornerstones of that 2025 recruiting class. So we will have much, much more coverage of all the news in recruiting. That there were a bunch more guys who were at camp at that 7-on-7 camp who were very impressive. We had grand plans to talk about all of them on today's show, and then news happened. So you got a quarterback show instead. We might talk about those guys on tomorrow's morning show instead. There's a lot to talk about. Some very, very impressive players from around the state and around the country, and a bunch of a busy month of official visits wrapping up as well. So lots of recruiting news to talk about, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Mark Givler, Alex Gleitman, staying very, very busy, keeping you up to speed on all that stuff on the Huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That is for members only. So if you want to get access to it, well, sounds like you need to become a member, friend. And good news, it is the price of a lousy chain store pizza. So save yourself some calories, save yourself some carbs, treat yourself to some great Buckeye insight and analysis, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.